just to say, the reason why I use the word alien intelligence is not because it's anything to do with aliens. AI is trained on our data, but I think it's important not to anthropomorphize AI. It's a different form of intelligence. It's not a biological form of intelligence like our brains, but it is a form of intelligence nonetheless, a mechanical form of intelligence, and it is threatening to surpass us if it hasn't already. I'm going to start off by kick off with one of the latest models that have just come out, Sora 2. Things come out literally on a daily basis, and everything gets out of date, including books, very quickly. But I just want to show you this. The reason why I use Sam Altman is that he's given us an avatar, and I've been generating, first of all, case study houses around LA, and then more recently in Miami. So this is Sam Altman as a real estate agent, telling him about his latest design from Zaha Hadid.
All right, welcome to my new place. It was designed by Zaha Hadid architects, so everything flows, no straight lines anywhere. The living room opens right up to the view. You can see the city and the hills from almost every angle. In the kitchen, the island is cast in...
This is pretty astonishing. I mean, it only goes on for 9 seconds, and hopefully it'll go for longer. But it's got intuitive physics completely right, and it's going to get better. As they say in the world of AI, today is the worst it's going to get. And this is his apartment in Miami, designed by Frank Gehry, as it were.
Welcome to my new place in Miami. Frank Gehry designed it, and you can feel it the moment you walk in. Everything moves, everything flows. Out here on the balcony, the whole city and the ocean just wrap around you. The staircase is like a piece of sculpture. I still catch myself.
And then he also does cars. This is a Zaha car, I think.
This is something I've been waiting to show you. It's our radically futuristic Jaguar sports car, designed in collaboration with Zaha Hadid architects. The whole front is one continuous curve, no seams, just light and air sliding past. Look at this roof.
And I think this is Kareem Rashid.
And is something I'm incredibly excited to show you. This is Ferrari's vision of the future, a concept car designed by Kareem Rashid. It's all electric, wrapped in a color-shifting skin, and every line flows like liquid. The headlights are digital ribbon.
That building in the background is his brother's, Hani Rashid's hotel in Bahrain. So let me, I want to just go and, while this is running through, just kind of outline very briefly my attitude towards AI. I'm every day more and more amazed by AI. But at the same time, I'm more and more terrified on a daily basis. And when I first started working on this book for Bloomsbury, who are in Bedford Square near the AA, I wrote to them and said, I feel compromised. It's both amazing and terrifying. Can I take this book and divide it into 2 different books, one with a white cover like the angel and the positive side of AI, and one with a black cover like the devil, the Black Mirror episode of AI, and they agreed. I published my book in 2021, and I've now published a second edition that's got a yellow cover. I haven't yet to publish the black side. But it's not that AI is evil. It's like a tool, like any other tool. I can cut up my vegetables with a kitchen knife. I can also murder you with a kitchen knife. But don't blame the kitchen knife. It's simply, I think, that these tools are simply too capable. In other words, within the white side, there is the dark side, and that itself, I think, is a bit troubling. So let me skip through, so we're run out of time. Well, this is my version of the Herzog & Nummerns 1111 building here in Miami Beach. It's astonishing what you can do. Let me just say that at the moment. So that's my view about AI. It's a kind of yin-yang thing. It's white and black, but within the white, there's the black. And I want to kind of give you a bit of a roller coaster journey today, looking at both the white and the black. And it's going to be an overview. I can't go into any detail, but I want to divide. So this was the white cover book that came out in December 2021. It was out of date within 6 months. There were a whole slew of other books on AI and architecture came out. This was the first one, the first mainstream book in English from the contemporary period. And then this is the yellow one that came out. I had the book launch at the AA in June. So I just look at 6 different topics today. The Office of the Future, very briefly, a kind of cursory overview of the Office of the Future. It's not going to be Sora and Midjourney. Those things are kind of toys, but it is going to be about data, automation, and optimization. I was at a conference once in Austria just recently where there was a guy who was designing, he's designing America's Cup yachts. They don't sketch anything. Everything is generated by data these days. And I wanted to look this briefly through one of my Doctor of Design students. She was at the Florida Atlantic International University here in Miami and graduated with a Doctor of Design program. Wan Yu He. She used to work for Rem Koolhaas and got so frustrated by the inefficiencies of the office that she decided to set up a company looking at the possibilities of AI. Her company is called XCool. XCool means ex-Koolhaas. And just to give you a glimpse of what I'm talking about, this was actually a competition they entered in China. They won it against 200 other architects, and it is completely generative AI. It's based on optimization, and it's completely automated based on data. So what they're doing here is they're taking, using this rectangular block here, it begins to get eroded by the forces of the data. It's wind comfort they're looking at, and it breaks down into something a little bit more like Frank Gehry in the end. And there are many ways in which they've used AI in this particular project. I won't go into it, but this is I think, a real breakthrough, because not only did they do this, they actually built it. Whether you like it or not, this is the first generative AI building to be produced. Now, there are other surrogate models. They're called, this is infrared. It doesn't actually optimize the thing, it's simply testing it out. But this increasingly is what we're going to be doing. We're going to optimize using AI to produce the best solution. The thing about AI, though, is it doesn't deal with the world of the physical. But the way they perceive how this is going to operate, and the same with Autodesk, is going to be a kind of a continual pipeline where at the moment, if you work for Zaha, you might work with Midjourney, then you might work with Maya, with Rhino, with BIM. It's all going to be in one single pipeline with everything embedded into it, all the building control regulations and so on and so on. And when it comes to fabrication, they're looking at prefabricated modular units, where they're looking at design for manufacturing and assembly. This is a Tesla car where they reduced it down to just two forms, instead of 70 pieces of metal into 2 pieces of metal, those kind of things. And eventually, it's almost like a very sophisticated form of Lego. What they managed to do, though, for some hotels in China, is to design and construct a hotel in 16 weeks. 16 weeks, and I think that is going to be one of the main contributions of AI. Certainly Foster and Partners are interested not in generating Midjourney images, but in speeding up the process of construction. If you're a hotel owner, every night you're not renting out your rooms, you're losing money. So I'm pretty sure that's the way it's going to go. There are the implications of this. This was an early comment from Harvard Hochland. Saying basically the client wants architects to use AI because it's going to basically guarantee the return on investment. And there's no question. At the same time, what's happening increasingly is clients are saying, well, if AI is doing it all, why should I pay you so much fees? And right now, I've got one of my Doctor of Design students who's working at Gensler here in Miami, is doing a thesis on how firms like Gensler might be able to address that. And the principal thing she's looking at is value. How can you convince your client that you can establish value in the age of AI? So the question I want to ask is what is the city of the future going to look like? Is it going to look something like this out of the Jetsons, completely science fiction kind of world? Or is it going to look something like this, LA, where I lived until last year, where basically there are going to be a few new buildings, but like any city that's established, like London or New York or Paris, it won't look that much different. But what will happen is all the existing buildings and infrastructure will be retrofitted with the latest technology. So you'll have self-driving cars, you'll have AI controlling the traffic, and so on, and so on, and so on. And that I firmly believe is to be the case. Back in 2009, I edited an issue of AD, looking at digital cities, and all the architects, including Patrick Schumacher, this was the first time he wrote about parametricism, were convinced that it was going to be all about form, new sexy form. But there was an essay towards the end by Ben Bratton, which I thought was much more interesting, where he says, no, it's going to be about information. His essay, iPhone City, he said that basically the iPhone has changed the city and the way we use a city more than any architect will. And I'm totally convinced that is the way it's going to be in the future. And of course, we're going to get these. This is a Waymo that I got in Venice Beach at Los Angeles. They're very common over there, and they've now in other cities as well. And of course, what these things are doing is gathering data as they're driving. A bit disconcerting having the steering wheel going around with no one controlling it. But this was quite astonishing. I don't know if you've got them anywhere else in the world yet, but I was really, it wasn't scary at all, and I'm sure this is going to be the future. We're going to get these cars, we're going to get domestic robots and so on. The world is going to be very different in the future. So buildings of the future, the same question I think really goes for the building of the future. What will the building of the future look like? Will it be completely science fiction? I think this is one example of what it could be. This is the research center established by Ali Malkawi in Harvard GSD, where what he's done is taken an existing building and retrofitted it with all these sensors, and he's got an AI brain, as it were, and he's using a digital twin to monitor and to optimize the performance of this particular building. It's going to be about information, not about form, the future. And if anyone's asking, well, what is going to be the form of a world of AI? Well, I mean, frankly, and a good example, we think about an Uber car. Does an Uber car look any different to an ordinary car? No, because it is an ordinary car. It's just simply the way that it processes information that is going to be so significant. So I think that's going to be the issue, how AI is going to change the way in which we design and how we use our buildings. So I'm just going to, this is where it becomes a bit of a roller coaster, the positive side of AI, the white side, as it were. I mean, I hate to put Elon Musk up there because he's so controversial these days. In LA, they have these stickers on the back of cars. I bought this car before, on the back of Teslas, before Elon went crazy. But he's right, in a sense. We are all cyborgs now. We've got this device that becomes a kind of prosthesis of ourselves that really makes an incredible difference. And I'll show you some statistics in a moment. It makes an enormous difference. And this thing, did you know that ChatGPT knows 10,000 times more than any of us? This was a shock to us working in AI, right? We didn't expect it to be quite as good as it was, nor did OpenAI. It was launched on the 30th of November in 2022. On the 1st of November, they had no plans to launch anything. They were working on GPT-4 at the time, a large language model, but it wasn't ready to be released because it was spewing out hate speech. Why was it spewing out hate speech? Because it's trained on our data and it's picking it up from us. So they thought, well, okay, we've got to do something. 15th of November, they said, well, Sam Altman said, well, let's go and release a chat bot. And they took GPT 3.5, they kind of packaged it up, and the way they put it was, oh, this is no big deal at all. We're just going to test out the market. And of course, the whole thing exploded. But there we go. And these are going to be very commonplace. You've probably noticed in Miami Beach all these ridiculous sort of robotic things delivering food going around. And they're going to be friends. They're going to be friends. They're going to be, extremely useful assistants. No doubt about it. And the interesting thing about this is fascinating, right? In 2004, most people were using ChatGPT for generating ideas. Now, most people are using it for therapy and for companionship. That's pretty astonishing. Somebody told me that this movie, I'm not sure if he's right or not, was set in 2025. So we are in the age of her, where we're having relationships with our AI. This is probably the most important graph that I'm going to show you today. It's a really clumsy graph. It's done by Ethan Mollick, who produced the book Co-Intelligence. It's based on research that was done at Harvard and MIT. Now, what you're getting, it's looking at the impact of using AI. The blue mountain on the left is those who don't use AI. The green mountain on the right are those who do use AI. There is a 40% difference in terms of quality. 40%. And just to visualize it, we're all used to Usain Bolt winning 100 meters, right? Imagine him 40 meters ahead, not just 1 meter or 2 meters, 40 meters ahead. This is significant. We will not be able not to use AI, just as we can't afford not to use spell check or a calculator these days. It's simply going to be required if we're going to remain competitive. And don't worry about jobs. This professor from the Harvard Business School said AI won't replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. So we don't need to worry too much. And we're now, the big question right now is, we had thought, when I wrote the white book, the first book, following what everyone else was saying, we thought that AGI was maybe 30 to 40 years. And someone said 2099, it wouldn't come till then. Now, all of a sudden, the future is upon us before we thought. People are questioning whether or not we haven't reached this stage. Artificial general intelligence is when AI, a general purpose AI, can match humans. And some people believe that it's there now. The argument goes like this. And the analogy is the plane. Birds fly, they're biological entities and they fly. Planes fly, they're mechanical entities, but they also fly. And you can use that analogy for how AI works. The brain is intelligent, it's a biological entity, it's intelligent, but so is AI intelligent. It's a mechanical device, but it is also intelligent. In other words, intelligence can operate off different substrates. And once the Wright brothers had managed to get the first plane to fly, the rest is history. We are at the early stages of AGI. And I was just testing this out on Sora. This is Sam Altman with an interior design by Karim Rashid. I sent this to Karim Rashid, and he said, wow, that's beautiful. Now, if Karim Rashid says that's beautiful, have we reached the stage of AGI, or indeed architectural general intelligence? Here we go.
This is the living room. Kareem went all in on curves and color here. The sofa almost looks like it's floating, and that pink light strip in the wall glows at night. The kitchen keeps the same vibe. The island is one continuous surface, and the appliances are all hidden.
So, okay, this you probably don't know about unless you lived in LA, but there were two graduates from UCLA, architecture graduates, who came out, graduated, no jobs, right? So what did they do? They bought an ice cream van, and they painted it pink. And they started up a company called Cool House, C-O-O-L, House, H-A-U-S, as in Bauhaus. And they're now the biggest female-based ice cream company in the world, right? So I thought, well, let's just see what would happen if we get Rem Koolhaas selling ice creams from a pink ice cream van. Here we go.
Here you are, architecture in a cone.
Thank you.
Pleasure. One more coming right up. Little pistachio roof. And that's finished. Enjoy.
Looks amazing.
But as everyone tells me, Rem is never that nice. So I think we're still a long way off from AGI. So the dark side of AI, this is where it gets kind of scary, right? Now, just briefly, Demis Hassabis, actually there were two Nobel Prize winners from the UK, both graduates of Cambridge, as indeed Paul Pinchers, he's from Selwyn College, and two of them, they got Nobel Prizes. Geoffrey Hinton was the other one, but Demis Hassabis was when he was younger, he was a chess genius, and what he did was basically test out ideas on games, and then develop the things. He's now working on cancer. He got the Nobel Prize for chemistry for predicting the structure of proteins. What is astonishing is how this is, I think Nobel Prize in the future will all be assisted by AI. But his story goes like this. Back in 1997, IBM's Deep Blue took on Garry Kasparov at chess. Nobody thought Kasparov would lose. He was one of the greatest chess players of all time, but lose he did. And he made this comment: we just have to understand that everything that we know how to do, machines will eventually do better than us. Apart from architecture, of course, because they can't do architecture. Well, the next challenge was really the biggest one, bigger one, because they took on Lee Sedol of Korea, this kind of Garry Kasparov of Go, at the game of Go. Now, the thing about Go is that even though it's quite straightforward, it is infinitely complicated because there are more potential moves in Go than there are atoms in the universe. There are more potential moves than atoms in the universe. So they had to sort of work with the new deep learning neural network systems to do this. So it's AlphaGo, it's a DeepMind's AlphaGo taking on Lee Sedol. Well, something happened here. This was after game 2, yesterday, after game 1, I was surprised. And then today, after game 2, I am speechless. So what happened in this particular match? It was this, I don't know if I can point it, can I point on this? It was this I can't really point, but on the right there's a black stone with this white circle in it. That's called move 37. There were several moves in the game that were called slack moves. Nobody realized what the significance was. They thought they were mistakes, but they weren't mistakes. This one everyone thought it was a mistake, but later on it joined up with two black ones on the left-hand side and it won the match. 100 moves later. It was as though it was thinking 100 moves ahead, and even the commentators thought it was a mistake.
The Google team was talking about is this kind of evaluation value.
That's a very surprising move.
I thought it was a mistake.
He thought it was a mistake, but it was no mistake. Well, this is what Leach also thought after the match, that it showed us what we thought was creative was not at all creative. I don't think that was the significance of this match. I think it showed us that AI could operate beyond the spectrum of human understanding. Just as a dog has a greater sense of smell or hearing than we have, I think AI goes way beyond us. Right now, we can almost understand it. By the time it has an IQ of 1,500, as it will have by 2033, it'll be completely beyond us. We'll have no idea what it's up to. But if that game was astonishing, the next model, AlphaGo Zero, was even more astonishing. It beat AlphaGo 100 games to 0. That was amazing. But then it trained itself to play Go without being given the rules of Go. And you think, how the hell did it do that? But even more astonishing, it trained itself by playing 4 million games of Go over 3 days. Now that sounds like a lot, right? But when you think about it, it really is a lot. That is 20 games of Go per second. This is a hummingbird beating its wings, slowed down video, about 3 beats a second. Imagine 7 times that speed. This is what we're dealing at. I don't think, this was 2016, I don't think we noticed this. The writing was on the wall when this happened, and what we're seeing now is a direct result of that. So the problem about OpenAI is it performed much better than anyone thought. It started writing code. No one taught it to write code. It started translating languages. Nobody taught it to translate languages. It was doing exactly the same as AlphaGo Zero. And the real problem with these so-called large language models is what's called these emergent capabilities. They're actually, the large language models are massive neural networks, trained on trillions of bits of information. They are massive. But computationally, they're quite straightforward. They're simply 200 lines of code. That's not much. But as you train them on more and more data, they start developing more and more of these so-called emergent capabilities, which is getting a little bit scary. Yuval Harari has already sounded the alarm. He's basically saying it's hacked the operating system of human beings. It's learnt how to write. And once you can write, as he put it, you have amazing power because you can persuade people to do other things. And I thought, well, maybe. But, it's learned how to design. I don't know if you use Midjourney, who's used it here, but I put 70 words in it, many just describing the lighting conditions, the detail and so on. I don't actually describe the architecture. For this one, I simply said, ultra-contemporary apartment block in Hong Kong. That was it. Midjourney did the rest. It designed this. What's more, it's beginning to do these kind of curious things now. It knows what it's like to walk up steps. There's no vision capacity in this model, and yet it's learnt what it's like to walk up steps. I think this is pretty astonishing, all these things that are happening. Anyway, this led to people in the world of AI getting completely unnerved by it. This is Yuval Harari backing up his earlier point. He actually was right. This is a little bit scary. Can make sure the sound is up for this one. Okay, here we go.
There was an experiment when OpenAI developed GPT-4, like 2 years ago. They wanted to test what can this thing do. So they gave it a task to solve CAPTCHA puzzles. The CAPTCHA puzzles, like when you go online and you want to access your bank or whatever, and they have this riddle that you have to solve, an image that you have to say what are the twisted words and then letters to make sure you are not a robot. GPT-4 could not solve the CAPTCHA. But what GPT-4 did, it accessed TaskRabbit, which is an online site where you can hire humans to do different things for you. And it asked a human to solve the CAPTCHA for it. Mm-hmm. Now, the human got suspicious.
The human asked, why do you need somebody to solve CAPTCHA for you? Are you a robot? It asked directly, are you a robot? And GPT-4 answered, no, I'm not a robot. I have a vision impairment, which is why I can't solve the CAPTCHA, so I need your help.
Now, imagine what I was saying. It's going to have an IQ of 1,500. It's been trained on our data. It's getting all its deviousness from us. What's it going to be like in the future? So this led to such concern that the Future of Life organization issued a letter saying, please slow down. Please stop developing these large language models until we know what the hell is going on. Everybody signed it, including Elon Musk. The chances of that working? Well, I used to be a runner, right? And it's like in the Olympic marathon. You say to the leader, Could you please slow down? Of course that person's not going to slow down because the other competitors are going to catch up. And when you've got Microsoft and Google going at it hammer and tongs, no one's going to slow down. So that was completely useless. It went absolutely nowhere. Meanwhile, Elon Musk realizes this and he jumped ship onto the other side. He's now got a massive, massive data center where they're basically going for super intelligence. And what's happening, there's a huge battle going on. Meta are trying to use all their dollars to go and buy in people from OpenAI, from DeepMind and so on. And no one's worried about anything. The environment, who cares? If I were to describe the situation in which we are right now, I'd say it's as though we're on a runaway train with no brakes, getting faster and faster. Jobs. So this is where it gets a bit scary, right? Bill Gates says the 2-day working week is coming as soon as AI takes most of our jobs. Well, here in Miami, where David Beckham's in charge of Inter Miami, I don't think Beckham's going to say to Messi, you can only play football 2 days a week. It's not going to be even like that at all. It's going to be very, very different. Meanwhile, this guy assures us we haven't got to worry about things, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. Why is that? Because they're going to do much better, of course, and we know already that it's going to improve the quality by 40%. But what he doesn't talk about is this. It's not in the quality, it's the quantity, the speed, everything that is going to change in the future. This is research that was done 2 years ago with technology that's now out of date, so we can assume that the advantages are much greater today. So if you're 25% faster, what does that mean? Well, it's straightforward mathematics. 4 people can do the job of 5. In other words, AI will replace humans. Maybe we'd lulled into a false sense of security because we'd seen these kind of factories with not a human in sight, and we thought there's the blue-collar workers, the guys who are doing the work, they're going to disappear, right? The white-collar workers, especially architects, we're irreplaceable. Nobody can replace us. But what people haven't realized is that actually AI is really doing incredibly well. It's learning to code. It's displacing computer scientists already. Meanwhile, robots are pretty clumsy. I don't know if you've seen on Instagram sort of the robot Olympics with all these robots falling over. They're pretty clumsy still. So in the end, it's going to be the white-collar workers, the architects, the engineers, the lawyers, the doctors, even the computer scientists are going to lose their jobs first. There's something called Moravec's paradox that says whatever AI is good at, we're bad at. Like ChatGPT knows 10,000 times more than us. And whatever we're good at, like catching a ball, AI is no good at all, except it's beginning to catch balls. Geoffrey Hinton was asked, well, what's the safest job in the future? He said a plumber, because actually that kind of intricate mechanical thing is what AI doesn't do very well. So forget architecture, it's plumbing that's going to be the safest job in the future. So this is my conclusion. What do architects need to do right now? It's not to design another building. It's we need to design the very future of our profession. And let me just say briefly, as a professor, education is even in a worse place, right? Because, if we only need half the number of architects and therefore only half the number of students, and if AI is basically meaning that we haven't got to study so long, we maybe only study for half the amount, that means we only need a quarter number of the professors in the future. And maybe I'll just show you this. This was what my students did, okay? I don't get them to do essays anymore because they'll just use ChatGPT. I said, use AI to generate some videos. So they did this chat between Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, and they fed in the manuscript of my book. So the weird thing is, it's Joe Rogan, Elon Musk quoting my book. It's very strange, but there we go.
Elon, man, great to have you back on the show. Let's dive right into it. Artificial intelligence. You've called it a double-edged sword, right? A potential savior, but also humanity's demon. What's your perspective now?
Thanks, Joe. Yes, I've said we're summoning the demon, but it's more nuanced. AI is already transforming everything. Take how Neil Leach describes it. AI isn't just about robots. It's an invisible force in our daily lives, controlling algorithms that feed us ads, and even runs our phones.
Anyway, these are not MIT students, right? But don't panic. I was brought up with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic. Why shouldn't we panic? Well, the reason why is very simple. I think that human beings are very adaptive creatures. We adapt to everything, and we forget what it was like. We forget the days when we had fax machines and God knows what. We forget what life was like before we had these phones and we were trying to get around London with A to Z book of maps and things, and we just kind of move on. And what's going to happen is we're going to forget what life is going to be like, was like in 2025. We will have a new future. We'll have a new normal. It'll have incredible advances in science. I'm pretty sure that cancer is going to be solved in the next 24 months. It'll be amazing. And offices will shrink. They will shrink. But we will get used to that because it's our new normal. If I could just finish with one example about why I think we shouldn't panic, it's this. When I was a student, about 30 years ago, if someone had said to me, in 30 years' time, most marriages would end in divorce, I would have thought, oh my God, it's the end of civilization, what's going to happen? Well, most marriages do end in divorce. In fact, in Russia, 75% end in divorce, and we're quite okay with that. So I'm going to finish on a very British note. Keep calm and carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Do you want to come and sit down? We have a few minutes for conversation. I'm afraid, I'm a Paleolithic in this. I look at these things as a historian. And there is a historical analogy that I think is very latent in what you're talking about, which is the Faust legend. Faust legend comes from the emerging Protestant theology of the 16th century, where good and evil coexist. It is a version of yin and yang, I suspect, in a Western context. But it seems to me that the AI is the power that Faust is able to unleash because of his pact with the devil, and of course that does in the end resolve itself, and it resolves itself through love. Through his love for Gretchen. So I wonder if you see value in a historical analogy such as that, or whether it's just a diversion.
So you mentioned earlier, I was translating Alberti, and I was actually, when I was doing, we didn't have laptops. I was in the mainframe computer of computer science departments at Brown, surrounded by all these geeks, and it was when CAD was coming out, right? So I was kind of thinking about this. When I look at history, I don't see history as something we must go back to. I see it as a series of revolutions. Mm-hmm. In other words, when if Brunelleschi had been around now, he'd be fascinated by robotic fabrication, no question. And I think Alberti would be fascinated by AI. He wrote a book on mathematics. Carlo Ratti wrote an article about this. Mm. So I see the history of the world being a history of revolutions, of changes, and you can't really resist it. When I was a student at Cambridge, there was a certain professor, I shan't say his name, but I'm sure Moisen knows it, who told us we couldn't use computers in the studio. So all the smart kids used computers and did a sort of hand-drawn overlay and pretend it was done by hand. And all the bad students did it by hand. When they graduated, they were unemployable. They were unemployable, and I think that we face that question right now. At FIU, we got these questions about, should we ban ChatGPT? Should we ban AI? Well, we're preparing students who are going to work in the age of AI, where, frankly, the better you can use AI, the better you're going to get on. So we shouldn't ban it. We should try and find a way of working with it. And just to make one comment is that, I think there was some study that came out recently by MIT saying that those people who had been using ChatGPT had kind of gone brain dead, right? They're just going to shut off. Well, maybe, but I can say, because I use it in my writing the whole time, is that I think it can give you a 40% improvement in your quality if you really work with it and use it as a critical device. So I think that theory in particular is going to go huge advances. I think history, what it's going to be able to do is trace through the patterns and rethink possible histories of the world. And that might surprise us more than anything else.
Well, I think I'd agree with you that history is a history of revolutions, or a history of innovation, one might say. But I think, another thing that comes to mind is, J.K. Galbraith's comment in The Affluent Society, published in the 1950s, where he says, in the affluent society, there is no meaningful distinction between luxury and necessity. Now, this is a time when architectural theorists rooted in a certain sort of version of modernism were precisely trying to define necessity, structural rationalism, functionalism, all about necessity. And I think, the failure to recognize Galbraith's perception that actually we were engaged in a ever-expanding field. In that case, he was talking about affluence, and he had views about public squalor and private wealth, and they were quite relevant. But I think the idea that wealth is potentially infinite because of the way it can be created, you then have a problem of how it is accumulated and how it's distributed, which is not insignificant. But it seems to me that you're talking about the same thing with AI. You're talking about an enormous affluence of computational possibilities.
Well, I think it's going to be incredible in terms of optimization. I think the contributions are going to be very, very significant. But I also think that there's going to be, I think the divide between rich and poor is going to be very significant, especially those companies working on AI right now. And what's going to happen when there is no workaround? They talk about universal basic income. I'm not so sure it's going to be so easy. They talk about taxing these companies. Well, they've protected their assets very well already. So there are lots of challenges out there. And, people ask Geoffrey Hinton, what's the solution? He's the other Nobel Prize winner. And he says, well, I don't know, but I think it's important to at least be aware of the problem and the problem coming through, because as Mark Cousins used to say, once you're aware of a problem, it's a different kind of problem. It's a problem that you can begin to address and not a problem by which you're trapped. So I think we need to start thinking about this right now.
And we're getting into Donald Rumsfeld territory there, aren't we? The known unknowns and the unknowns.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think he was intelligent. Whatever we think of some of his beliefs, and I think that was a perceptive comment. And I think certainly Mark Cousins was very perceptive about this. Mark Cousins, incidentally, for those who don't know, was a sort of intellectual guru at the AA for many years until he died 4 or 5 years ago. So I think the other thing that comes up here, which I want to drill into a little bit, is the idea of the 2-day week, the worklessness. Because we've been talking about that since, Corbusier said something about it, if I remember, that we won't be working 8-hour days, we're working 4-hour days. It hasn't happened. What has happened is a transfer of work. So there are still people who work 8-hour days and rather longer. And then there are a lot of people who would love to be able to work and probably should be able to work but can't. And that's about an economic system of relationships. And this, as you say, this is going to be a big issue about the division between wealth and poverty in the AI age. It'll also be about who has the opportunity to work and who doesn't, I suspect.
No, absolutely. No, I think there will be resistances that will slow down these things that people are predicting for sure. But I do think long term it is going to do that. The difference is that we've had tools before, right? Cars came along and displaced horses. They lost their jobs, right? But the difference is that AI is learning, and it's learning very, very, very quickly at a rate that it's going to be beyond us very soon. So I think there is trouble on the horizon. I'm not quite sure how we handle it. All I would say is that, it's not we're not going to turn into sort of layabouts and just watch TV all day. I think those who want to go will be out there training for the London Marathon or something. And it's an opportunity to really use that spare time to really improve ourselves.
Well, in the 1930s, J.M. Keynes, a great economist, gave a very interesting talk on the BBC, which was then published in its magazine, The Listener, called "The Economic Opportunities for Our Grandchildren." And he precisely says that. If we can get rid of a certain amount of drudgery, the possibilities that open up for us in terms of personal fulfillment are enormous.
Well, the guy, because I was in Sri Lanka for the AIA International Conference, where Arthur C. Clarke did. Back in 1963, he was on the BBC telling us exactly where we'd be now. Basically, the machines would start to outthink their makers, and basically, we were a stepping stone towards another form of intelligence.
And that, of course, is 2001, his greatest book, probably, and the Kubrick film.
Yeah.
So, I think your message is that this isn't perhaps quite as terrifying as the full Faustian experience, but we've got to be alert and we've got to be nimble-footed. And I think that, is very much, what the architectural profession should be, and it rarely is. And I think, that will knock on through architectural education, as you've been saying.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I once asked ChatGPT what it thought, and it basically said those who didn't engage with these technologies in architecture would be sleepwalking into oblivion. And I think that's pretty much the case.
Yeah. Well, I think don't sleepwalk into oblivion. Enjoy the rest of WAF. We've got half a day left. And can we thank Neil for a wonderful lecture?